All right, welcome to another episode of the Why Influence podcast. Today we've got an amazing guest. Her name is Jessica Stansberry. She's got an awesome YouTube channel. She just hit a giant milestone, and she's also sharing on a bunch of other platforms and sort of channeling it all through into her business in a pretty unique way. So she's able to create a sustainable lifestyle and living off of creating online. And first of all, I just want to say thank you for coming on the show here today, Jessica.
Thanks for having me, Jeremy.
Of course. So what I'm gonna do real quick, if you listen to the audio, just know that I'm gonna be sharing my screen and just poking around Jessica's YouTube to give you a quick idea of what it's about. Uh, so here's her YouTube channel. She just passed 100,000 subscribers. She's at 101. She brought out a video a week ago saying from 0 to 100,000 subscribers, how you can get there faster. I actually watched that video and a lot of great advice in there because she shared how she could have gotten to where she is now faster, and just what attributed to her success. So we'll learn some of that from her today. But if you want to learn more, it's probably a good video to check out. So that has 2,700 views in a week, which is pretty awesome. If I look at her videos, we're looking at 1,300 views, 2,700 views, about one to 2 or 3 thousand views per video, and she posts looks like twice a week, I think, right now.
Right now I'm at once a week, but sometimes I will randomly post a second one, and I'm planning to go to two a week
Okay.
again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's what you said. You're planning to go to.
Yeah.
And then you've got a total of over 5.5 million views. So you've had a lot of impact on a lot of different people out there.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy to think about, to be honest.
Yeah. I hope it's okay. I pulled up the social blade just for a little bit deeper dive in the analytics here. It looks like you're getting anywhere from 3,500, 5,000 as a minimum per day to 20,000 plus views per day overall through your channel. That's amazing.
Thank you. I love
Yeah.
how Social Blade does your estimated earnings, and it is nowhere close.
Yeah, it's never everyone says it's nowhere close.
No, nowhere. I mean, way
Yeah.
off.
Yeah. Cool. So yeah, I just want to say thanks again for coming on the show today. And uh, so uh, do you mind just sharing in your words what just briefly what your brand is all about?
Yeah. So my big mission is to teach entrepreneurs and content creators how to be successful, how to do the things in the easiest way possible. So I think a lot of times, like if you'll watch the big YouTube creators and they're like, here's how to start a YouTube channel, and you need this $5,000 camera, and you need this thing, and you need to edit this way, and you like it's also confusing, you know? And so one of my big missions is to make sure that people have the tools they need for as easy as possible for them to be able to grow a brand, grow a business, be a content creator, whatever they're wanting to do, quickly and easily without a lot of like steps in between.
Awesome. Yeah, I know that you referenced Tim Schmoyer and some other
Mhm.
people that were impactful for you in your early days,
Yeah.
and I see a little bit of overlap in the kind of advice that you're sharing, but yours is also has its own unique take on that. And like you said, it is a little bit of a slower niche to grow in, and it's
Mhm.
amazing that you've been able to get to 100K so fast, in my opinion.
Yeah. It's funny because people don't like realize how slow it is to grow in like an entrepreneur businessy niche or like a how-to niche when it's for that. Like you can grow in a how-to niche really quickly if it's for the right thing. But yeah, I mean it's been a crazy ride, but Tim has been a great mentor and friend. I was actually just texting with Tim like
Oh wow.
yesterday. Because we have you heard of Clubhouse? This new like app thing for oh, so interesting. So it's like a live audio social media platform. And you can like bring people in. So it's almost like remember what Anchor was back in the day?
Yeah.
Kind of like that. But Tim and I were joining it at the same time. And so we were like talking about doing,
Nice.
like what we were going to do. But it's, yeah, it's interesting. It's really interesting. I think I could have grown quicker if I was in a different niche, but that's okay. And, I'm good with it.
Yeah, yeah. So before we get into things here, do you mind sharing just like an impactful story for you, like someone that reached out to you and was like, "Hey, this had this kind of impact on me," something that you didn't really expect to happen?
Yeah. So Honestly, it happens a lot for me. And I think a lot of it is because I started my business. I quit my job with absolutely no plan. We were broke. I shouldn't have quit my job, but I did. I hated it. And I had a baby that I wanted to like not send to daycare all the time. And so I have this journey of, I started my business out of desperation. And then I also had a baby and then and then a toddler and then another baby. And I grew my business at the same time. And I think that journey, but also the journey of being a small town person and, having an accent, that's something that people say a lot. When I was in college, I had a professor. So we were just talking before we went on air. I went to Appalachian State. And if anybody's listening and thinks it's Appalachian, it's not. It is Appalachian. You are wrong. And you were taught wrong. I went to Appalachian State and there I was in the communication department and I had a broadcasting class, and I'll never forget the professor stood up and he was like, if any of you ever want to use your voice to make money, like if you want to be in a TV journalism, whatever, you have got to correct your accent. Because we were all North Carolina kids, and like the state as a whole has a really wide variety of accents. So, and I was just like, no, you crazy man. So anyway, I have kind of made it my mission to be really relatable and show the behind the scenes as much as possible. And I have gotten people who just recently, I had someone from my town say, Jessica, I love watching you because if someone who lives here can do what you've done, then it gives me inspiration to do bigger things. Because
wow.
I'm not even joking when I tell you, we have more cows than people here. And, the highest paying job, you might make $60,000 a year with a 4-year degree. And that's pushing it. That's very few jobs. And we just don't have a lot of opportunity here unless you drive to like Banner Elk or Boone or somewhere like that, where, you can get more opportunities. And so I think the biggest ones that are more impactful for me are the ones from people here locally who are like, I love seeing what you do because it inspires me to be able to do more.
Wow. Yeah. And that's not something that you planned to happen when you were starting out your YouTube channel. It's not like you're like, oh, 4 years from now, I'm going to have someone locally tell me how big of an impact it has, seeing someone around here.
Yeah. Right.
That's amazing. So let's go into some advice here for new creators, and then we'll go into your story and deep dive into
Sure.
that. So let's say you meet someone in the street that just started a YouTube channel, or they're just starting out and they haven't posted their first video yet. So someone really early. What would be some of the biggest advice that you would give to this person?
Don't get caught in the details. Done is better than perfect, especially in the beginning. So what I see is all these people who go into research mode, right? And they're like, what do I need? How do I need it? How do I edit? How do I do this? And they get stuck right there because it all feels really overwhelming. And so my biggest advice would be to just get started, like make like Nike and just do it. Because once you do, it's easier and easier to continue to do it. And you can build and grow and do better and learn those things as you go. But right now, just get started.
Yeah, that's huge advice. Because I know for me, like, it was just to get started too. I started my podcast audio only, re-recorded myself asking every question in my first couple episodes. I was very uncomfortable, but if I would have never gotten started, I may not have gotten to where I am now, where I'm more comfortable doing live stream interviews and things like that.
Right. And, a big thing for me, and this, I think women will relate to this more than men, but, I had gained like 15 pounds or something, like when my business got really busy. And so I kept saying, I'm going to start YouTube when I lose that weight, like when I do this, and I've never lost that weight. So if I would have waited until I lost like 15 pounds or whatever, I would have never started. And so now looking back, I'm like, that was dumb. Like it wasn't that big of a deal. And literally never, ever had anybody comment on my weight on camera or anything like that. So although you do get some weird comments on YouTube, but that's not been one of them. But the point here is like, a lot of people get held up in the details and in the like, I'll do it when, or let me get this perfect first. Let me get my office set up first. And, you just don't need to do that.
Yeah, and especially if you're doing it on a new platform, nobody's really listening, especially if you're not sharing it. So there's a
Right.
lot of experimentation you can be doing.
Yeah, totally. Nobody's watching. So
Yeah,
yeah.
awesome. So let's say you meet a seasoned influencer, so someone who maybe is a peer uh, with you on YouTube, maybe around the same distance and journey as you.
Mhm.
What would be some of your secret sauce that you feel like you're doing different than the average person on YouTube that's attributing to some of your success?
Yeah. So I think for me, one of the mistakes I made in the beginning that I've been trying to rectify is that I was only focused on search traffic and like doing things that were search friendly. And now that's important. It really is. And I would say like that's been the biggest key to my success, right? Is like having these videos that are found years and years later, and having people come in and watch them now. But now I'm trying really hard to make sure I'm doing search, but also make sure I'm connecting with the people already there. Because some of my videos get like no views. Not that they don't get any views, but they're low. And it's because the people who are already there don't care about them. So
Hmm.
it's a fine balance of that. And I think that as I move forward, that's the biggest strategy. And that's probably going to be the biggest thing that takes me further is like really focusing on the people already there, but also bringing in new people.
Okay, so up to this point, you've I'm sure put some effort into the people that are already there, but the emphasis has been on the SEO,
Hmm.
organic reach, the reaching more people, as opposed to nurturing the people that have already chosen to be there with you.
Yeah. Yeah. I've always just sent them somewhere else, right? Like I've been like, go find me on Instagram or go whatever. And they do. And that's great. And I have great relationships and a great like nurturing community on Instagram. But I kind of missed out on which I think that's part of the problem with like a business niche on YouTube. People are Googling things and then once
Right.
they're done, they're done. And
Yeah.
so it's a matter of like getting them in with the search and then keeping them there with my personality. And I mean, that already happens, but really focusing on that as a strategy going forward has been probably in the last like few months, I've started focusing towards that
Okay.
more, infusing more as if I could infuse more of my personality, but infusing even more of my
Yeah.
personality into my videos and making videos that aren't really search friendly, that are just for the community has been great for me.
Awesome. So the path that you took, might have grown your channel quicker, just through the organic reach, but maybe didn't reach as deep of relationships with the people that had subscribed with you up to this point. If you Since
Exactly.
you haven't been focused on that.
Yeah, exactly. And I realized that. I was like, "Oh, like I think what happened is I saw someone else with a channel similar to mine and they had grown super quickly, but not only that, they were getting like a ton of views every new video, even if that video was exactly the same as the last video. And I realized very quickly that they were doing a great job at, you know, like nurturing those people and bringing them back every week. And so that's what I've been really trying to focus on since. And I mean, I can't
Okay.
give up the search. That's what's grown my channel, and I can't, give up on opportunities where I know that that would happen. But also, I don't, that's not my whole focus anymore.
Yeah, yeah. I've talked to a lot of people that they create different content for the different purposes, like you're saying. So,
Hmm.
like some guests have said that the how-to videos is what brings them there, but then the vlogs are what's keep them there, or
Yeah.
whatever it is, the type of content you choose. Uh, that you could definitely focus down on that. That's really cool.
For sure. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons I want to go to twice a week is so I have a little more room because I've done everything, right? I've done daily, I've done 3 times a week, I've done this, I've done that just to try and experiment as I've grown. And for the last probably 6 months, 5 months, I've done once a week. But one of the reasons I want to go more is so I have a little more room to like do both of those
Yeah,
things. Yeah.
nice, awesome. Well, thanks for those pieces of advice. Let's jump into your story a little bit here.
Sure.
All right. So first of all, I want to see like where the beginning is. So like, where would you say was like the first time or around when you started like sharing in a larger capacity,
Yeah.
bigger than just like in person kind of thing?
Yeah. So, like I said, I started my business when my son was born. Essentially, I was like, I don't want to go back to work. And I went back to work for a month and then I quit with absolutely no plan. And so that was fun. But I wasn't really present on the internet at that point. It probably took me like 5 years after that. So, in 2015, what happened was I was always really embarrassed, not embarrassed, but like cautious of my accent and the fact that people equate Southern with stupid. And it people say all the time, like, that doesn't happen. It actually does. Like the media does it, and the movies and things like that. And we've known that our whole lives, you know? And so I think that held me back for a really long time of being present on the internet, because it was like, somebody's going to make fun of me. I've had a few people, but it's not been anything crazy. But in 2015, I stumbled on a podcast, and I just kind of started getting into listening to podcasts. And I stumbled on a podcast where the co-host was Southern. And I was like, well, if she can do it, then why can't I? So basically, that's kind of how that snowballed. And I started my first podcast in 2015. I co-hosted it with one of my friends that lives in New York, and that ran for like 3 years. And that's when I really started getting more visible on the internet. So in 2015, I started that. In 2016, I started my YouTube channel. So yeah, it just kind of snowballed from there. And now you can't get rid of me. There's a girl in the town, well, in Boone. So there's a girl in the town over who has my same name, and she's a real estate agent. And I met her at a conference, like a local thing. She came up and she was like, I just wanted to introduce myself. Like, I have your same name. And she was like, and thank you. I can never get any Google ranking ever. And I'm like, you're welcome, because I have been on here for so long that, like, you Google my name, you're going to find me. Like, you might find her, but it's pretty rare. So I've just, now the internet can't get rid of me, basically.
Yeah. That's awesome. So in 2015, you wanted to start sharing, but you felt cautious because of your accent. And it wasn't until you started hearing a podcast with a guest that had an accent, or a co-host with an accent, that sort of gave you that permission to, like, go all in with it.
Yeah.
Do you mind talking on that briefly? Just, overcoming the barriers of getting started there in that instance.
Yeah. I mean, it was definitely a mind thing. I remember, so I had a web design company until 2016. So I kind of switched out of web design into this like infopreneur creator space at that point. But I had this web design company, and I would never get on the phone with my clients because I thought that they wouldn't hire me, or my potential clients, is I thought that they wouldn't hire me, because again, Southern equals stupid in the minds of a lot of people. And I did have one client who, when I got on the phone with her, she made fun of me the entire time we were on the phone. Like, every other word, it was like, ha ha ha, you said that funny. And I wanted to smack her, right? Yeah. Oh yeah. She told me I said like several words wrong, and I'm like, no, I'm just saying them the way that most people say them here, like, it's not wrong. It's just my accent. So I had a lot of just barrier to that. It was like, I don't feel comfortable with it. And I feel like people are going to make fun of me. And it wasn't until I heard, so the podcast was actually Being Boss, and it's still running. The two co-hosts at the time were Emily Thompson and Kathleen Shannon. And I don't even know how I stumbled on it. Like, it was just kind of like, oh, here's a pod. You know how podcasting goes. Like, you go down a rabbit hole. Yeah. And I was like, she sounds like me. And it turns out that she wasn't from my area, but she had lived here because her partner had went to App. And so that was really interesting. I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And just hearing her like embrace her accent, she never even mentioned it. It was just kind of like, who she was, allowed me to say, well, if she can do it, then so can I. And it's almost like just immediately all of those like fears vanished. And by the way, that is the thing that when I speak on stage, when I'm anywhere, people are like, I recognized you immediately because your accent, or I love your accent. So nice. It's like the thing that people attach themselves to from me. And it's dumb that I held back on it for so long, Yeah,
I think it's common that the reason people are held back is possibly something that really attributes to the success. It's like that
Yeah.
thing that's a big barrier to
Yeah.
overcome. Like I had a guest recently. He does video game. He talks over video games. His name is Guile, and he's British accent, and he attributes his accent pretty much fully to his success. He's like, you know, I wouldn't be as successful if I didn't have this accent.
I don't think I would either. And you know, a lot of it is that people can tell me apart. Like it's not, I'm fairly memorable too, right? So like you hear me on stage and one, I'm usually like, bleh, like my personality is a lot, but also my accent. And so I'm different than everybody else you just heard on stage, you know, and or heard on a podcast or heard on YouTube. And so that really sets me apart. And I didn't realize that, right? Like in my younger years. But as I've gotten older, I'm like, okay, all right, well, we're going all in on the Southern, you know? And I start every single video with, hey, howdy, hey, y'all. Like it's just, and I think I end everyone with bye, y'all. So it's something I have really embraced now. And I really do not think I'd have the success I have now without it, which is weird.
Yeah.
But that also doesn't necessarily mean that everybody needs an accent to be successful. It's just they need something different. Right?
Yeah,
like something
unique
that's different. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, you talked about the overcoming barriers part, and oftentimes that requires a powerful why. So I'm curious, you know, when you started your podcast, when you started your YouTube channel, like what was the why back then for you? Like what was driving you so that you could be so unstoppable to overcome these barriers that were getting in your way?
Yeah, I think at that point I saw the potential for my family above all else, right? Like, and now it's very much so a solid mixture of, you know, the benefits to me, but also how I can help my audience. But back then, it was wow, people connect themselves to me. I can make things easy. So what happened was I started sharing tech tutorials. Like some of my very first videos are like tech, like system and tech things, and whereas there's people who literally talk way above heads, you know, for tech, I was like bringing it down to people's levels, you know, and I would get compliments all the time. Like, oh my gosh, I watched 7 tutorials and yours was the only one I could follow, you know? And so at that point, I kind of attached myself to like, oh my gosh, well, I can be that person who can help these people. But also at that moment in that time, we really had like some big goals as a family. We wanted to buy 30 acres and build our forever home is basically what our goal was. And at the time we had just sold our first house and had purchased my husband's grandmother's house, and we were living like this close to my in-laws, and God love them, but that's not a great situation. You know, and it was one of those things where I was motivated for my own personal reasons for a lot of it. And now it kind of, you know, morphed into that and my audience's needs. Right. And I really care about the things I share. Like I don't take a ton of sponsorships, and I don't like, well, I mean, I want to, but like, it's not like I'm taking everyone that comes my way, because I'm really protective of my audience. And a lot of that has come with time. But in the beginning, it was like, I can make so much more money doing this than I ever could locally in a job. And if it weren't for this business, we bought 30 acres and built our forever home a couple years ago. Yeah, thank you. We wouldn't have this, you know, and it's really powerful to see what a business can do for you as a person, not only like the financial side, but also like I am so much more of a like better human because of my business. Like I have grown personally and dove into personal development, and all of it just, it's just all my why now, you know, like
yeah.
I need it all. I need to help people. I like the money. And, you know, I like the fact that I don't feel like I would be the human I am today without my business, you know?
And so you started because you wanted to help the people. You saw the help coming from the tutorials that you were creating, and then you had the financial goals. So it was a business sort of from the beginning for you.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah. I mean, like I said, I'd had a web design company for about 5 years up until that point. And that web design company, I mean, I made money, but it wasn't like I made a ton of money or anything. But the thing is, I always needed the money I was making. We could not live off my husband's income. we just couldn't. And again, I live in a pretty low income area. My husband has a bachelor's degree, and we still we could not get a good enough job to be able to live off his income only. So essentially I had to make money. I had to put my feet to the ground and make money. And so those first 5 years, it was hustling, doing graphic and web design. And then I used that as kind of the catalyst to be able to start creating free content, because I had a little bit of a buffer financially, and then kind of merged the two and quit doing web design in 2016.
Okay. And so the first tutorials you were creating, 'cause it's my understanding you had a blog before the YouTube channel. So were those first tutorials that you created that you saw that was helping people coming from those blogs?
Yeah. So the very first tutorial I created was how to create an interactive Gmail signature. So if you want your picture and then the pretty links and all the things, that was my first tutorial. And what was so funny about that is I put it up with a blog post just because I figured out how to do it. It wasn't like anybody was asking me for that, right? I was just like, hey, I figured out this cool thing. And it kind of went mini viral. It still doesn't have that many views, but it went mini viral, inside of the Facebook groups I hung out in at the time. And I went to a conference a couple months later, and I wasn't speaking or anything. I was just an attendee. And 3 different people during their speeches used me as an example and kept referring to it as the Jessica Stansberry method. And I was like, wait a minute. What? And because I didn't even know that many people were paying attention to what I was doing, And so from there, it was ConvertKit tutorials and things like that. But yes, I mean,
that makes
basically
sense.
They were just assets to my blog.
Right. Yeah. So because a little before I was you got the feedback from the tutorials and that was driving your motivation, but how did the first tutorials come to play? And now it makes sense that it started at the blog and then made its way to the YouTube channel from there.
Yeah, pretty much.
Awesome. So how would you say your why has changed today, or has it? What's your motivation for continuing today now that it's my understanding you have sort of a sustainable living situation now? So what's your motivation now and moving you forward into the future?
Yeah, I really struggled with this for a while because for 4 solid years, my why was I need to save up enough money to be able to keep my other house, buy 30 acres, and build a house. And that was a lot. It was just a lot of things going on at once, but it was my goal for 4 years.
Yeah. And
so
that's
when
having kids too.
Yeah. Yeah. And so when it happened, I literally sat stagnant for a solid year because I was like, I don't know what my goal is anymore. I don't know what I'm reaching for, And for me, my why is much more now about my audience than it is about me. I can sustain my lifestyle as it is now. And obviously I want to continue to make more money, right? But there's not a big personal goal I'm working towards in that respect. And I've just had to come to terms with that. I'm sure there will be eventually, there will be something that I want, maybe a second home or a third home or whatever. Right. But right now it's more about my audience. It's more about, I remember how I was when I started. And that is so many of the stories I get, going back to your very first question is thank you for talking about the fact that you couldn't afford the fancy camera when you started on YouTube or the fancy mic when you started a podcast or whatever, because it makes me feel like I can actually do this. And so now it's much more about my audience and what they need to see from someone that will help them move forward and do bigger, better things.
Awesome. Yeah. So is it to help them sort of follow in your footsteps to create something similar to what you created, or is it just in general for whatever is purposeful for them? What's the way that you're trying to help your audience now?
Yeah. So the biggest thing is really helping them create the business that they want. So it doesn't have to look like mine. And 99% of the time it doesn't. I mean, you have to be crazy to want to put yourself on the internet all the time. I mean, that's the honest truth. And we know that, right? Most people do not want to do that. Most people are not I want to literally, we had to drive an hour and a half away because, by the way, that's my closest Target. So we had to drive an hour away last night to pick up something for Christmas. And I literally edited the video that's going to go live today in the car on the way. And so, like the normal human does not want to do that type of thing,
Yeah.
And so what I'm really about is helping them create a business that gets them the life that they want to live. Because what I have seen is that entrepreneurship is the way to do that. It's not corporate, it's entrepreneurship. And so if I can help somebody create whatever the business is, right, that they want to create and make the money they need to make to live the life they want to live, that's really the like full purpose.
Okay. Awesome. So now you're making this big shift into, trying to help the community.
Mm-hmm.
Do you mind like talking through what the community looks like, how it's organized, what it feels like? Do you have a community hub? What's that whole ecosystem look like for you?
Yeah. So for me right now, YouTube is kind of the top of the funnel, if we'll call it that. That's how people get into my ecosystem, right? And then from YouTube, I generally am sending them to my Instagram. And so Instagram is really where I cultivate my community. It's where I'm having two-way chats with people. It's where, we're really getting into the nitty gritty, and it's where I'm sharing the day-to-day life, and the day-to-day behind the scenes and things that are really going to connect people to me and my mission. And so YouTube kind of feeds that. I used to have a Facebook group where that was where everybody hung out. It got too convoluted, just like everybody else's Facebook groups, it was just like, this is too much. I shut it down. I had like 7,000 members, and I shut it down because it was just it was not about the business anymore. It was about everybody promoting everybody's thing. And
yeah, that's
I was done. Yeah. So really I cultivate my community on Instagram right now and on YouTube. They're just cultivated in different ways. So when they come in on YouTube, they'll stay for a minute and then they'll come over to Instagram usually. And I have courses. So usually what'll happen is, if someone wants my help, they'll obviously buy a course, and some of my courses have exclusive Facebook groups. So then they'll also be in community with me there. Going forward, I've had a membership before. I hated it. But I've not had it in the perspective of like a Patreon or something that's a little less, I don't know, not restrictive. Restrictive is not the right word. A little less like needy. I feel like you don't have to be as like, here's all the things on something like Patreon because it's so low cost, whereas I had like I think like a $50 per month membership, and I was constantly having to be in there and give value. And that was great and all, but it was a lot. And my real passion is creating free content. So I don't, like, if I could just be sponsored forever and make money on affiliates and sponsorships and never have to sell another course, I totally would do that. But that's not the case right now. So, like my community, free community comes in through YouTube, cultivates on Instagram, and then they'll usually purchase something from me and get in like sub communities.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thanks for explaining that.
Yeah.
So do you have anywhere, I guess the Facebook group used to be somewhere where people could talk to each other, but it sort of got out of hand. And then I guess if people go through your courses, there's a smaller knit community sort of behind there somewhere. But as far as people interacting with each other, is it mostly through like YouTube comments, and you see people like interacting with each other's comments, and similar on Instagram?
Yeah.
You see that interaction there?
Yeah, that's pretty well the two places that I see it, which is not the best, right? For my people to be able to talk to each other, which is why I say like, I probably will eventually have some other hub. It just won't be a Facebook group. And I don't know what that looks like for me, what the best, because if I hate something, then I'm not gonna, have people in it, right? Yeah. So I have to figure out what I like to do and then how they can kind of come into that. But yeah, right now it's Instagram and YouTube comments, and people will hang out in YouTube comments, and it's really interesting to me. I'm like, okay, all right, you guys have fun
on YouTube.
Yeah.
Nice. It makes a lot of sense that it takes time to figure that out, because you have to have the motivation to stick with it, and that because you've done it and you've stuck with stuff for years. And so if you make a commitment to create a community, it takes time to get that going, and then you want to make sure that your motivation is going to stick through to the end.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely a hard thing to sort of figure out for a lot of people.
Right. Right. Yeah. And I think it's like fun to do the cool thing, and but then you get in it and you're like, I don't like to do this. Like, why would I do this? Because I don't enjoy it. And so it's like a solid mix of needing to create that community, but also wanting to enjoy it myself,
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. So you can share based on like whatever level of comfort you have,
Hmm.
but you've been able to create a lifestyle by creating online, and you did it with a business mindset from the beginning.
Hmm.
But do you mind just sharing like a high level, like your income sources, like
Hmm.
where you're able to make a living, so that when people are listening to this, they can sort of spark ideas and how maybe they can approach getting a living, especially people approaching it from the beginning, seeing as that's how you sort of approached it.
Yeah, of course. So
Awesome.
since 2016, my main stream of income has been courses, mainstream, or digital products. I do sell some like digital planners and things like that. So that like digital product as a whole is kind of the main stream of income, with YouTube probably being second. Now, obviously, it wasn't always that way. Now, I make like $3,000 to $3,600 a month just from YouTube AdSense, which
Oh
for
wow.
me is amazing because I look at that and I'm like, I made more from YouTube this last year than I did in my last year in corporate. That's
Yeah.
insane. Just from YouTube, like not even from like my other income sources. So the biggest thing is
Wow.
courses. And then the second thing would be YouTube, likely, and then sponsorships and affiliates are going to come in after that. I I do some one-on-one services here locally. I do some one-on-one consulting and things like that locally, but that makes up a much smaller percentage of where my income comes from, and I only do it locally. Like I don't open myself up online for that.
Yeah. All right. Uh, awesome. So thanks for the details on that. So when would you say, just for the context, because you weren't always making this money on YouTube ads. This
Hmm.
is just as of today. You've got 100,000 subscribers. You've been doing this for 5 years, kind of thing. So like, how long was it before you saw anything that was like you're like, oh wow, like there's potential here from the YouTube ad standpoint?
Yeah, I don't know that I even saw the potential until like last year, honestly, because YouTube had always been an add-on or an asset to my business. It was never the business. As I move forward, it is becoming more of the business, for sure, and taking on more sponsorships and really focusing more on the content creation there. But yeah, for me, it probably wasn't until last year. I started When I started on YouTube, I spent a solid year without being serious about it at all. It was literally just popping videos up. I wouldn't even go look at them. Like I didn't care how many people watched them. I didn't even know that was a thing. And it
Right.
was just kind of like to give my videos a place to live for my blog posts. And then I said in that 0 to 100,000 like video that is on my channel, but essentially I realized that I had grown to almost 500 subscribers without even trying. And I was like, well, why am I not like focusing more on this? I feel like I could do better. And so that was kind of the light bulb moment. And that was
Mhm.
in 2017, mid-year. And then right around that time that I had that light bulb moment, Tim Schmoyer did his first in-person kind of event intensive. And that's kind of what kicked off me wanting to do better on YouTube. And so I
Okay.
went to that, and that was so much fun. I built a ton of great relationships. And yeah, from there, the like potential in YouTube for my business I could see. But from the income side, it wasn't until I was making, 1,000 or even, $1,500 a month that I was like, wait a minute,
Right.
there's money here.
And that took you 4 years to get to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was probably right at 3 years. Yeah.
Okay, 3 years.
Yeah. Hmm.
So you spent about a year and a half with mostly minimal coming in, and then
Hmm.
you got intentional with it, and then you started creating these online courses, and that
Hmm.
drives like the main revenue even up to today. But
Hmm.
it drove revenue back then when you were much smaller.
Yep.
So that's one angle at being able to monetize the YouTube. And
Yeah.
then after three 3 years, 4 years of sharing, you get to a point where now that the YouTube ads was able to support, that income as well. And then you've got the sponsorships and affiliates that come with that. And then you've got, some local one-on-one coaching stuff that you're doing, but at a much smaller scale.
Yeah, much smaller. I very rarely do it. It's kind of like I charge a lot. So it's only the people who are super serious about wanting that and makes it worth my time. Because if I'm going to take my time away from creating the content that, one, makes me money already, but two, then drives people into my ecosystem who will buy my courses, right? Then it has to be worth my time.
Right. We got a few comments that came in here. Coffee Talk said it's hard work.
Yeah.
I think neither of us would deny that.
Yeah, it is. And I think that's something that people don't, like, they don't realize. They think it's just like pulling out a camera and then like, yay, I'm a YouTuber, and that's not, that's not how that works.
Yeah, for sure. And then Eileen said, hey, Jeremy. Hey, Jessica. So she's
hi,
saying
Eileen.
Hi. Hey, Eileen. Hey, Eileen. Awesome. So, well, congrats, by the way, just on how far you've come in your journey. It's amazing that you're able to help people and make a living at the same time doing it. And, now you're just trying to help more people as your next mission, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
So before I open the floor to sort of have people know how to reach out to you or say thank you or follow you or wherever you want to send them, knowing that, a lot of listeners here today either have their own platforms that are pretty established, or maybe they're just starting out, but they're just trying to grow the impact of their voice. Do you have any last words for listeners here today?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing would be to be yourself. And don't hold back on that. I have a video going live today about how to start on YouTube, like, cheaply and easily. And I went back and grabbed a clip from like one of my very first videos, and I am not me at all. I'm like, hey, welcome to my channel. Like, there's no like personality behind it. And my personality is what makes people stay. Now, that doesn't mean it doesn't repel some people, because it probably does, I know it does. And because I get comments like, you're stupid. Thanks. But essentially just being yourself, like, embrace yourself, embrace your own personality, because that's what's going to set you apart. Like, don't try and be other people. Try and be yourself. And because, if somebody runs up on 2 different creators or 3 different creators, which one are you going to pick? And they were all creating the same content. They're going to pick the one whose personality they resonate with the most, So being yourself and showing up authentically and showing up like in your real personality is so important. I mean, I say that's what she said to like every other sentence on my channel, like, because I'll say things and I'm like, wow, that was a dirty joke. And I didn't even mean to, and I say things that would happen if we were just having coffee or if we were just having dinner. And I make sure to do that, because if I don't, then I'm being inauthentic and people are not getting to see the real me anyway.
Yeah. Authenticity and vulnerability, those are huge things. And it's actually a large reason why I chose this topic for my podcast, because I always saw that I would gravitate towards the most authentic people in a room when I was anywhere.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, I have entrepreneur experience. I also have social media growing experience, and where's the more authenticity at? And that's why I chose, talking to people who are sharing in big ways online, to surround myself by people who are more authentic and vulnerable.
Yeah. Fake people are no fun. Like, they're just not. And people can read that. I think that's important to know. It's like, people know when you're being fake and when it's not coming across authentically, and the authentic, you're right. I mean, people will be drawn to the authentic people because they're unapologetically themselves. And there's something really like attractive about that as as someone you're consuming online or whatever, because it's like, wow, they're like exactly. The weirdest comment I get in person is, wow, you're exactly like you are in your videos. And I'm like, well, it would be weird if I wasn't, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it's a huge compliment.
Yeah, it really is. And I didn't realize it was a huge compliment because I didn't know any other way to be, until I realized that people generally do put up a massive front when they're putting out content on the internet, and I do not.
Yeah. It takes a long time to overcome that, or to
it does.
get past that.
Yeah, for sure. It was like I said, in the beginning, I was not like that at all. I was like, I'm going to read off a script and not really say much and try and correct my accent and, whatever. And now it's just like, no, I'm just going to be me. I don't care.
Nice. That's awesome. So what's the best way for people to look you up, get a hold of you? Where do you want to send them? I'll have the links to everything in the description and in the show notes for the episode, but just wanted to make sure I get that taken care of, right?
Perfect. So honestly, if you are a YouTuber, watcher, a YouTube watcher, YouTube is a great place to come hang out with me. And you can just go to youtube.com/Jessica Stansberry or just search for my name. Really easy to find me. And then my other platform would be Instagram. And that is where I'm hanging out in the day-to-day. I am on stories. I literally never let my bubble go empty. Occasionally on a Sunday, it'll go empty because I try not to be as active on the weekends for my sanity, and to make sure my kids know they have a mama and not just somebody who talks to the phone. But essentially, I'm really, really active on Instagram. That's where I have good conversations back and forth because I can't physically answer all the comments on YouTube anymore. They just, there's just too many. And Instagram is just my name as well, @Jessica Stansberry.
Awesome. Yeah. So go check out Jessica's YouTube channel. Go to her Instagram, follow her there. That's going to be where you can get easier hold of her. And then go check out her courses if there's anything you're trying to learn in this field that she's been talking about.
For sure.
Coffee Talk and Tech came up another comment. You said it takes time to be yourself in front of camera. That's why the more you do, the better you'll get.
Did you say coffee? I said coffee, but fun fact about yo girl, coffee tastes like burnt tires. I don't drink coffee. My husband loves coffee, and I'm always like, ugh, it's so gross. And I feel like I'm not a true, because I'm like an old millennial, and I feel like I'm not like a true millennial because I don't like coffee. But
his show is called Coffee Talk, so we'll see if you get an invite to the show.
Yeah, probably not. If I bring my tea, I will do so. But that's about it. Coffee literally tastes like burnt tire water. Like you burnt tires and then you squeeze them into water. That's what it tastes like.
I don't deny that.
I know my husband's always like, that's the best description, but also I like it. And I'm like, okay.
I usually call it dirt water. I still drink it. I have some right here.
Yeah. You went and got with your TubeBuddy.
Yeah, we're actually sponsored by TubeBuddy, so shout out to TubeBuddy.
Awesome. I'm getting on the phone with Rob from TubeBuddy when I'm off of this.
Yeah, tell him we talked.
Mm-hmm. I will.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on today. Before I let you go, I like to ask for feedback because I'm on my own, growth journey and trying to get better at doing what I'm doing. So I'm curious, based on your experience of, being a guest on the podcast, going through this, the conversation, either positive or constructive, just any kind of feedback. Just curious if you have anything for me.
Sure. Yeah. So I feel like you asked good questions. Very good questions. I am a really crappy interviewer. I think I said that on our call that we met on. Yeah. I don't do well asking questions. I forget what I'm going to ask, or I ask really bland questions that don't matter to anybody. And so I think you're a really good interviewer and you have good questions. That's my only feedback.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, real quick, Eileen said you had a bad experience with coffee. Sorry to hear that.
No, I don't like a lot of drinks. I don't drink alcohol, but it's not because I have a problem with people drinking alcohol. It's because I think it tastes like butt. And I don't when the year I turned 30, I'm 34. The year I turned 30, I bought I swear to you, I bought every type of wine there ever was anywhere to try and like wine. Cause I you feel cool, with your friends, with a glass of wine. No, it's all gross. So now I just learned that I like, soda water, and I can do bubbly water and things like that. And I take that with me when I go out with people.
Nice. Awesome. Well, I just want to give a quick shout out to TubeBuddy for sponsoring this podcast and the community. And if you're looking to grow your influence, definitely check out Jessica's content, but as well, listening to this episode is a great way to do that. But we also have a weekly meetup where we get together with a bunch of creators and we help lift each other up. So, Jessica, of course, you're invited, but a lot of listeners here also join the weekly meetup that we host online every Thursday. So if you go to winefluence.com, there's a community tab, and there you can sign up for the community. But yeah, just definitely check out Jessica's YouTube channel, her Instagram, and thank you so much for coming on here again today, Jessica.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Sure. All right. Have a great one, everyone.